Hello and welcome to the webinar on Easy Reporting in Therefore. My name is Jennifer Schmidt and I'll be your host today. As I previously mentioned, my name is Jennifer Schmidt. I am a member of Therefore's media team. If you have any questions after the webinar, please feel free to message me at media@therefore.net. So today we're going to go over how to easily generate reports in Therefore, learn what kind of reports can Therefore create, and when should you use one reporting module versus another. And then of course we'll be going over some demos and next steps to really give you a hands-on feel of what you can do with Therefore and how to quickly get started. So in fact, a lot of the demos that I'm doing today are going to assume that you have no existing reporting knowledge. So if you have a system available, you would actually be able to follow along with me and configure reports as I configure mine. So it should be a really great way for anybody with just basic Therefore knowledge to get started with these new reporting features. I've added a couple of cartoons here throughout the webinar. I hope that they just make things a little bit fun and exciting for you. So first of all, when I talk about reports, what are we talking about here in Therefore? We're talking about using data that is in Therefore system to generate reports, usually in a bar graph type format. Thus, we're operating under the assumption that the data in the Therefore system is suitable for creating reports. Generally, that will not be an issue in production systems. However, if you have a demo system, you would first need to create sufficient data in order to create the report. I know personally, I have had a lot of categories and workflows in my demo system, but oftentimes I just have one or two documents in there, which doesn't create enough data to actually generate a good looking or meaningful report. So first of all, I would really encourage you that if you're using a demo system, think about what categories you have that have a lot of different documents in there, because you'll need a lot of data points in order to generate sufficient reports, of course. What type of data and reports are well suited for these reporting features? Invoices cost over time, or sales reports, workflow duration, invoices grouped by country, sales rep, amount, anything like that, overdue workflow instances. So we're really looking at the data that's in numeric values. That's the type of data that we can easily use to generate reports. So why do we want to use reports? Well, obviously, reports help us explain the world in ways that are very easy to understand and that give us a good visual representation of the data that we have. Of course, I'm not encouraging you, like this cartoon here is saying, to change the statistics, but we do want to be able to use reports in order to have a better overview of the information that we have in our system. So why use reports? Reports can give you better oversight of business processes. Reports can help you minimize risk because you can easily see which of your procedures is more prone to failure than others. Might even help you optimize your process because you can see any bottlenecks in the way that your business is being run. And you can also quickly find areas that need improvement, especially if you're using reports to look at workflows. Finally, it can help you become more timely to get more up-to-date information. Reports are also very mobile. They're very mobility friendly because you can access reports and data from outside the office. You can even access them on your Therefore Go. And of course, they're very scalable as well. You can get a high-level overview of a process, and you can also see the details. Both are possible with Therefore reports. One of the big misconceptions when talking about reporting or statistics in Therefore is that there's only one way to get that report. In reality, Therefore supports 3 different options to get reports. This includes a very simple, easy way to get some graphics using the Dynamic Web Client, which is a feature in Therefore 2020 and later. We can use SQL reporting services, and we can finally also use Power BI. I'll give you a demo of each type of report so that you can see what it looks like and what options each type of report leaves us with. To do that, I will show you a report based on the same category and workflow so you can see how the medium affects the way the data is displayed. So we have 3 different options. Each one has pros and cons, and we'll look at all of them. So what do you need to get started? First of all, reporting is included free in all Therefore editions. So regardless of which type of report you want to generate, you do not need to purchase any additional Therefore licenses. Next, you do need to have a category and or workflow or workflows with lots of good documents and processes. Again, for those of you who would be planning on doing this in a demo system, you would need to really ensure that you have a sufficient amount of data in the category or a sufficient amount of workflows in order to get enough data points. And then, depending on what you're doing, here are the specific needs per option. If you're using SQL reporting, you need SQL reporting services installed and enabled and set up. This is done automatically with Therefore Online. If you're using Power BI, you need a Power BI Pro license. And then for Therefore 2020, it is necessary in order to use the dynamic web view. All right, so let's get started at the very beginning. We're first going to look at the most simple option, which is creating a dashboard in Therefore 2020. So we have a new dynamic web client starting with Therefore 2020, and it allows you to actually get started with creating your own custom dashboard. So this is the new interface for the Therefore Web Access. If we click here, and this is what you would see the first time that you open up the dynamic web view. So just a very plain screen with nothing on it. What we can easily do is we can add a new dashboard here. We'll call it Webinar. And now we have a new dashboard pane created. By clicking this little pen on the bottom right-hand corner, we can add a new tile. And we have many options to choose from. So we could do a workflow inbox tile. We can also add a graph tile as well, which is perhaps one that's the most interesting here. So what we can do here with the tile is we can select the configuration. We can change the chart type, bar, donut, or pie. We can also select what type of statistics are shown here. For example, documents created this week by category could be interesting. Let's go see what we have here. All right, so we have a total of 25 documents were created in my demo system this week. We have some training, reports, and a PDF simple invoices. So we have a couple of new documents that were created this week. And then, of course, we can add additional tiles as well. Maybe in a workflow inbox tile, so we can see how many workflow inboxes we have here. So we've got a total of 4 here. And as we go on, we can just add more tiles and more components as we would like. So the options are rather limited. But as you can see here, the base, let's do the specific configuration here. So we can see, is it a donut? Let's do maybe a bar graph here. And let's see here, documents created this year by category. Let's go see that. All right, so we can see here the entire year here, how many documents were created by category. Generally speaking, the options here are quite limited. You're looking at general information about the Therefore system as a whole. You cannot create category specific information, or you cannot manipulate the data at this point in time. So this is a good option if you're just looking for an overview of what's going on in the Therefore system as a whole, what's in your workflow inbox, what documents have you been creating, that kind of thing. But it's not a good option if you're really wanting to analyze processes or workflows in particular. So let's move on now to a next option, which is a little bit more complex. The next option that we're looking at is using SQL reporting services. So we have a integrated connection with SQL report services, which allows you to easily create reports from the solution designer. These reports can be automatically generated or ad hoc, so that you can ask the reports to be generated on a schedule. There's a number of pre-configured report templates as well that are part of the Therefore system, and that allows you to really easily create a lot of reports with no customization at all. There's no scripting required at all. Here I have 2 examples of sample SQL reports. As you can see here, they are bar graphs. They're blue, and they can either be viewed in the Solution Designer or in the Therefore Navigator. So let's take a look at how this is done. Very easily, you open up the Solution Designer, you right-click on SQL Reporting, define a new report, you match the fields from the category with fields in the report properties, then you can view the ad hoc report, and then you save the report, and it will save the report in the category under the system. Add subscriptions as well. You can ask when the next report will be generated. The most important thing to consider is when you are using these SSRS templates, the fields can only be mapped if the category design is correct. So you have an invoice date field and an amount field. The invoice date field has to be a date field, and the amount field has to be a decimal field. Otherwise, the system will not recognize it, and you will not be able to match. Let's go see what this is like in person now. In order to create a report using SSRS, we first need to open up the Solution Designer. Then I'm going to navigate to the reporting module, open it up, and expand on the SQL Server reporting services. When I open this up, I'll notice that I have a whole bunch of different templates. These templates range from templates that are about categories and templates that are based on workflows. So I'm going to use a template for sales, which is a category-based template. I'm going to look at sales grouped. So I right-click on the template that I want to use, and I select Define New Report. So now I can select a name for the report. So I'm going to do it on invoices. And I can also select a title that will be displayed. Simple invoice report. Now I have to select a category. The important thing when I'm selecting a category is that the category has a good amount of data in it. It has a date field and a decimal field. So I have one category here where I have a whole bunch of sample invoices saved. Now I can select what I want to group it by. I'm going to group it by the supplier name. Invoice date field is going to be my date field, and the amount field will be my total amount field, which is a decimal field. Now I can select how I want to order it. I'll order it by name, and the report period can be for the current year or any other selection that I want. So I can do the current year, I can do the previous year's previous number of days. Because I'm using a demo category, I don't have a whole bunch of documents saved. I'm going to do previous N years, so I'm going to do previous 3 years because I know that the documents in that category have been saved only within the past 3 years. And now I say OK. If I want, I can also define a subscription for this report, so I can generate a report either daily, weekly, or monthly, and I can select the format that that report will be generated in. That report, if it's automatically generated, would then be visible on a regular basis in my Navigator. I don't need to generate a report for this demo, so I'm going to leave this blank, but I can also send an email here. You just have to configure who the email goes to, subject, and of course, before using any email, you would also need to configure the SMTP settings in the Solution Designer, just like you did if you want to use workflow with email or anything else like that. So that's also an option. Click OK. And now, if you look, a new template has been generated right here that was not there before under invoices. Now I can select this, I can right click, and I can say View Ad Hoc Report. And you can see here that a ad hoc report has been generated. Just like that. I also want to show you that it's possible to use templates to generate other types of reports as well. Typically, these report templates are used for invoice-based categories or any sort of other process or category where sales figures or invoice figures would be kept. But like I said before, you can also use these templates to generate reports about any other sort of information, as long as that information has a date field and a decimal field. You can also try using the templates for other types of reports. So I have a couple of information points from a survey that I did. And so I'm also going to use the sales grouped report here, but I'm going to use it for webinar participants. So the category that I'm going to use is going to be a form that I used. I sent it out to some training, and then I'm going to group it by where are you from. And the date field is going to be the date of the webinar. And the amount field, I'm going to use how much statistics have you had. So then I'll be able to see actually, based on where the participants are from, how much experience they have with statistics. And here it's generated again. Let's view the ad hoc report. And there we go. So you can see here, I'm able to see how much experience these participants have. One thing that I could do is I could also limit the report time period to just a single day. So if I had survey results coming in from, say, this webinar that I did today, I would then be able to see on average how much the participants have, knowledge that they have. So as you can see, it's possible to use this limited number of templates in a lot of different ways. And so hopefully by thinking about the data that you have in your system, you're able to make good use of the templates, even if the templates don't exactly fit the scenario from the first get-go. I do think that there is a lot of options available if you get creative with it. And of course, you can also customize these SQL templates, but there are limitations to it. One, if you're using a Therefore Online system like I am at the moment, you would have to do a workaround in order to do customization with SQL Server reporting services. Waleed did a previous webinar where he showed that he exported the data from an online system and imported it onto an on-premise system, did the customizations for the SQL Server reporting services on the on-premise system, and then imported it back to the Therefore Online system. The alternative is to get this database schema from the support team, and you can then use that to do the customizations. However, both of these options, as you'll see, are not ideal. They're kind of cumbersome. So I do have to say, from my personal opinion, would be that if you have a Therefore Online system and you want to create custom reports, the best option would be to go for Power BI. Which brings us to the next part of the webinar. We're now going to be looking at Power BI. Let's move to the slides. We're going to learn how to send a data set from Therefore to Power BI, how to do a little bit of customization, and how to display the Power BI dashboard in Therefore. So Power BI is a very powerful and very flexible module for reporting and data analytics that comes from Microsoft. Data sets containing information from workflows, categories, or cases can be automatically uploaded to Power BI according to a defined schedule. This data can then be used to create reports in Power BI, which are dynamically updated. I should also note that until now, everything that we've seen requires no additional licenses. However, Power BI does require a license, and it does require a bit of configuration from the get-go. Before you can start with the Power BI configuration that we're going to see today, your company system administrator needs to actually change the settings in the Azure portal to allow, therefore, to connect to Power BI. And this is done once on a company-wide level, and it requires very advanced administrator permissions in order to do so. The configuration of this step is something that we'll provide to you in written instructions. It's not terribly difficult, but it's something that has recently changed, so I'm not able to show it to you right now. And it's also something that is only done once on an administrator level for the company, whereas all of these steps are done on a per user basis. Once you have configured Power BI, the Power BI dashboard can be visualized within the Therefore Navigator. As you can see here in the screenshot, I'll also show it to you on my own system. And just again, the configuration for Power BI can be divided into more or less 4 main steps. The first step is to configure the Power BI account in Azure. You have to go to the Azure apps and you have to change a few of the security settings in there. Then you have to transfer the data set from Therefore to Power BI. This is done from the Solution Designer. Then you design the report and save it to a dashboard in Power BI. That's done in Power BI themselves in the website. And then you have to share the dashboard and you have to add the dashboard link in the navigator. You also have to enter your username and password for Power BI in Therefore so that the connection can be established from the user to the Power BI. So let's take a look at how this is done. So the first step for configuring Power BI is to open up the portal Azure and to configure the app services here. This is the part that we will cover in the documentation. The important thing is at the end you need a client ID, which you then enter into the Solution Designer settings. I will show you where to enter that client ID right now. Once you have configured the connection on the company-wide level between Therefore and Power BI and configured the security settings for the app, let's open up the Solution Designer, right-click on the Power BI and go to Settings. You need to enter your personal username and ID for the Power BI user, the client ID. This is on a company-wide level, the subscription password and the subscription user. So this is something that will be done once, and then regardless of how many data sets you send to Therefore, that information will be stored by the Therefore system here. So this is the first step, and after that we can start sending data sets from Therefore to Power BI. And I open up the reporting module and I go to Power BI. You can see that I've already transferred 3 data sets to Power BI, which is the purchase order, simple invoice, and test with Waleed. I'm going to right click, say new data set, and now I can select a name. I'm going to select, sales report. And now I'm going to say new index data upload because I'm using index data. I can also upload workflow data alternatively. So now I'm going to select my category. And now I can select which data I want to have uploaded to Power BI. So my category has type of item sold, name of salesman, date of sale, and total value. And I can also limit the date range. So I personally know that the date range on this data is just from this month here. So we're not going to have very much data in this field, but yeah, the past 12 months is also fine. All right, now I say, okay, sales report. Now I can close the Solution Designer. And the next step is that I need to open up Power BI. I already had Power BI open in the web browser. And so now when I open up here, I should be able to see a data set here, sales report. And there's nothing configured here yet, sales report. So now I can select what kind of visualization I would like. So I think I'll just go with a column chart. And now I can do type of item and name of salesperson. So you can see here, Harry Potter has sold the most. Type of item sold, yeah, so We can play around with these visualizations. We can change how that data is organized. But that's a Power BI function that I'm not going to get into during this webinar because I want to stay focused on therefore. So regardless, so now I have a report that has been generated. I can now save this report. So I've saved it under the name sales report. And now you can see it's here. Now I click on the 3 dots and now I can pin it to a dashboard. So I can either pin it to an existing dashboard or to a new dashboard. Either works fine. I'm going to pin it to an existing dashboard that I have here and I say pin live. And now I can go to the dashboard. And so here's my new dashboard that I have here. Now, in order to get this dashboard onto my Therefore Navigator, I need to make a connection between the Power BI dashboard and Therefore. So what I have to do is I'm going to go to Share, and I'm going to copy this dashboard link. Now I need to open up, I need to go to Options, and I need to enter the dashboard URL here under the Therefore Navigator. I click OK, and I should be able to then see the new dashboard. So let's close the Navigator, open it up. And the dashboard is then automatically opened when the Therefore Navigator is opened. You can see here this newly created report is visible there. So this brings me to the conclusion. Some final thoughts that I have regarding Power BI and regarding SSRS reporting. So the main difference between SSRS and Power BI is one that SSRS is free and that SSRS is significantly less easily customized if you're trying to get custom reports. SSRS is very easy to use though if you're using the report templates like I showed, and Power BI is not free of charge. You do need a pro account, and Power BI is also based on cloud storage, which means it's much better suited for Therefore Online. If you're using a Therefore Online system and you want to custom your SSRS reports, you would need to get the database schema from the support team, or alternatively, as Waleed showed in his webinar, you could export the data to an on-premise system and then do the customizations in that and then re-import it. Either way, it's more cumbersome to do. Finally, the SSRS look and feel is rather limited, whereas Power BI has an enormous amount of colors and choices and different graphs. The ease of use for customizing reports and creating new graphs and new visualizations, it's definitely superior in Power BI compared to SSRS. And Power BI does not have much support at all for the free version. There's a limited trial. It's about 1 month long, and it limits the amount of data that you can put in there. And you can also not do any subscription services, whereas you can do a lot of subscriptions and you are quite free to do a lot of things using SSRS. So personally, I'd have to say that given the tremendous amount of reporting features that we have, and therefore there is a right type of report for every customer, regardless of how big you are, how small, how simple or complex. If you want it free, if you're willing to pay for a subscription, we have a right fit for everyone. And that brings me to the conclusion. Thank you so much. I hope this was informative and useful to you. If you have any questions, please email me at media@therefore.net.